Welcome to the Profectus podcast. I'm Dr. Brian Dorcey, and we're down here today in Vienna, Illinois, with Dr. Monty Kerley from Profectus Livestock Solutions and Phil Lawler of PDT Consultants.
Yes, I'm Monty Kerley. I'm a senior ruminant nutritionist with PLS, and today we're going to talk about our approach to balancing diets for beef cattle, specifically on the topic of balancing to meet amino acid requirements based on the energy density of the diet.
So, Dr. Dorcey, one of the first things that I learned when I started my animal health career way too many years ago was there's natural friction on the feedlot between the veterinarian and the nutritionist, and that's not the case at Profectus, obviously, because you offer both those services and more. Tell me a little bit about the whole, let's call it the holistic or the total health approach that Profectus takes with clients.
Yeah, that's a great question. The nutritionist and veterinary rub goes back generations after generations, but we were very intentional when we started Profectus Livestock Solutions about bringing shared accountability to our customers so that we could both impact productivity. So we have nutritionists on staff, we have veterinarians on staff, as well as sales associates that all are helping to drive profitability into our farmers' operations. So veterinarians and nutritionists working together has been exponentially more beneficial for our producers than historical relationships had, where the nutritionist was blaming the veterinarian and the veterinarian was blaming the nutritionist,
right.
And then the farmer was sitting in the middle going, who do I believe? And so as we take a combined approach to the farms, we believe our customers win because of that.
I love the description of shared accountability.
Yeah.
Because it's natural to deflect it to, must be something they're doing, but when you're both part of the same company bringing those solutions, the farmer's going to be the winner. The farmer or the rancher are going to get what they need.
Well, I love it when our nutritionists are on the farm and they fire up the phone as they're leaving saying, hey, Brian, I saw this. Or I'm leaving the farm and I fire up the phone and I say, hey, Monty, I'm seeing this. Or hey, Brandon, I'm seeing this. Is this something to be concerned about? So we can really be proactive and bring proactive solutions to a farm just through our putting our heads together and working for that farm as a team.
It's a very natural blending of services because they are not isolated.
You would think.
Yeah.
You would think, but in our industry, it's very siloed flows of information is what I find, unless you've got a different opinion, Dr. Kerley.
Well, I think the good thing, Phil, is if I'm there and Brian's not, I can't blame Brian.
Right.
If we're there together, we have to find a solution. We can't throw off the problem, right?
Yeah, exactly. Brian and Monty, let's talk a little bit about how you accomplish that balancing rations on amino acids to achieve the right effective energy, and then what are some of the outcomes of that you see? It's probably not just, they gain faster. There's probably a multitude of output or outcomes that it influences, correct?
Yeah, normally I would say that's so simple, I'd let a veterinarian answer that, but Phil, my guess is Dr. Dorcey's going to say that's mine to answer, probably, right? So one of the things that I like to start off with is in beef cattle, most of the time, if you look at most programs, they balance for protein and metabolizable protein. The point we like to make is no animal has a protein requirement. So protein by definition is nondescript, right? They have a requirement for amino acids. So that's what we attempt to do is balance for amino acid requirements of the calf. Now, what makes us different is we think we've got equations that allow us to have enough accuracy in estimating the amount of amino acids going to the small intestine to match that up to the requirement of the calf. And we come back, we do that, and base the amino acid requirement off the energy density of the diet the calf has to eat. So if we've got background in calves that are on a silage heavy diet, that's going to have a different amino acid profile in the diet than what calves that are on steam flake corn or high corn ration. If we talk about creep feeding calves, we've got a lot more lean growth potential in those calves than we do a 1,500 pound calf. So we're going to have different amino acids to energy requirement in those calves that we're going to put in the diet. The whole aspect of this is we want to look at what's the growth potential of that calf. We want to give it the amino acids it needs to do that. And that's typically where we see we maximize feed efficiency, and also maximize the value or minimize the cost of gain on that calf. So the whole idea is here, how do we make this calf more profitable for the producer?
Right.
From my seat on the bus, Phil, what I see is healthier calves. So when I know our nutritionists have their boots on the ground doing the formulation for those, I see calves that start better, with less available starch. They have less digestive upset as they get started on feed. So I see healthier calves on the farms that Monty and his crew is feeding.
Monty, I was intrigued with the discussion that was being had earlier about the day-to-day fluctuation that you see in the individual calves on intake. I would venture to guess that there's a lot of feeders out there that don't realize that's occurring in their pens.
It's the best way I know to describe it is with the Grow Safe data and some of the work we've done with cattle, you learn what you don't know. And that's actually a fairly important thing, is to know what you don't know.
Yeah.
The intake on the calf, they very characteristically, they go on a 3 and 5 day cycle. And when I was still in faculty in Missouri, we showed there was a statistical repeatability to that intake pattern. It's not acidosis, it's not some of the normal things we think about, that's the way that calf approaches life. And so what's the interesting thing about that, if we have a group of calves in the pen, our intake looks very consistent, and we're very proud of ourselves how we're managing that bunk. But when you look at individual animals, there will be at least a 50% variation over that 3-5 day period in what the maximum that calf eats and the minimum that calf eats. So if a calf's eating 20 pounds, one day it's eating 30 pounds, 2 days later that calf ate 10 pounds of feed. So think about managing that calf, and as I said, it teaches you some things you didn't know.
What impact does this Profectus approach have on carcass and carcass value?
So we were really chasing cost of gain and maximizing the use of the diet, for production. So when we did that, we'll see a 3 cent to 7 cent cost of gain on commercial settings. Typically, that's kind of the effect or the benefit that we've seen. If it's a growing calf, lighter weight calf, it'll be 7 cents or more. Finishing calf, maybe that 3 to 4 cents. The other thing that's been interesting, fairly characteristically, we're seeing 8 to 20 pounds more in carcass. So when you look at the value of carcass today, that's become a very significant player in making these diet changes. If anything, we can see an improvement in yield gain or yield grade on the calf. No change in quality grade. So if we're already up high choice and a good percentage prime, we're not going to hurt that any. So two big advantages: cost of gain and value of the carcass.
Okay. All right.
And that's what our producers have seen, that my customers that have fed the Profectus feed, is the additional pounds of carcass that they get to sell has been very impactful, as well as the increase in yield. So that the conversations on that kind of a thing goes all the way back to the packer.
Right. Yeah, because the value of that carcass, not all carcasses are created equal.
Yeah. Yep.
So maximize the value.
Yep.
So Monty, one of the areas that the Profectus diet impacts animals is also on reducing oxidative stress, and that we've all heard the term free radicals and oxidation. We know it for rust, not for what's happening inside of a cow or inside cattle. But can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So typically, if you look at calves on feed, they've got the energy in the diet, but most of the diets that we feed, if they're balanced with distillers grains to meet a protein requirement, they're going to be short in amino acids. So those calves are going to overconsume feed because in those cases, it's the amino acids limiting growth, not energy in the calf, right? So if they overconsume, that's that much more work the body has to do, the cells have to do to metabolize all that carbon, if you will. So what we think happens, that the acid production in the gut, all of that contributes to an oxidative stress or an oxidative load in the calf. So what we think happens is if feed intake comes back some, we still get the same performance. But if we pull that back, what we have is less oxidative stress on the calf And we like to think of it as better oxidative state of the cells in the calf. So the other thing, Phil, in addition to oxidative status, that we've seen a couple of cases where we think we can extend the shelf life of like hamburger, retail shelf life of the hamburger. Whole reason for that, if we've got more oxidative capacity in the meat, it's going to last longer in the shelf.
What we see on the veterinary side, when we reduce oxidative stress, we have less liver lesions, and that's where we think some of our health improvements coming from, as Monty and the crew balances for amino acids. So, which predisposes the calves. We've got a number of our calves that go into kosher programs, which, liver abscesses and lung lesions will get you kicked out of kosher. So some of the kosher packers across the country prefer the calves that are fed on the Profectus feed.
And that seems to be a concern, particularly with the beef on dairy cross calves, that because of their different upbringing, let's call it, nobody's really nailed down exactly the factors that are causing the higher liver abscess rate, but let's just get rid of it.
Yeah, for sure. Some of it's probably the eating behavior that comes along with it, but also they're predisposed to some leaky gut things and gut microbiome that just aren't great just because they're on feed for so many days. So I think as we balance for amino acids and get that in the ratio to energy, we really see a healthier calf.
Well, this was great talking to you guys. I've learned a lot, as I always do, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, it's great having you visit.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us today on the Ahead of the Herd podcast. If you found today's conversation valuable, please share this episode with a fellow cattle producer. Until next time, keep your operation ahead of the herd.